No. I think my mom's ready.
Oh, that's your mom?
Good afternoon.
Oh, gosh. Oh, dear Lord Almighty. Okay. Hey, guys. My name's Leo Rossoni. My thesis is called Make It Ourself, Designing Toys for Creativity. I chose the title Make It Ourself. It's a kind of a play off of Do It Ourself, but I believe that whatever we do, whatever we make, is a reflection of ourself. And whatever we produce, we put a little bit of ourselves into that thing. So I aim just to get people to start making stuff and start developing their own self. I'd like to start with an improv game or exercise called Build a Room. So we're going to collaboratively build a room, one idea at a time. So can I just have one suggestion for a type of room?
Library.
Library. All right, so we're going to build our dream library. Anybody have? What's one thing that they would like in their dream library?
Books.
Slide? Okay, so we got a slide. So we'll put a slide right here. Oh, we'll say it's right here. And it slides straight down into the main floor area. Okay. And then you said a sofa? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll land straight into that sofa. Right there. And what else? What else do we want? We got a
stained glass window.
A stained glass window. Oh yes, we got a beautiful stained glass window right here. So as the sun sets, as we're sitting on the couch after we slide down, reading a book, and the beautiful light just dances all on our body, as we're reading. And what else?
We want one of those cool ladders that scoots along the shelf.
The what? Oh, the cool ladders. Yeah. The ladders. So after you finish, Harry Potter, Prisoner of Azkaban, you grab the ladder and then you stop right here in the nonfiction section.
Wow.
One more thing.
Ball pit. Shakespeare.
What is it?
Ball pit.
A what?
A ball pit?
A ball pit. Yeah. So right here at the end of the nonfiction section on this side, we have a ball pit that we can climb up to the top of the ladder and jump in. After grabbing, some Encyclopedia Britannica. And so that's our library. So we have, what do we have here? Slide, and that goes right into couch. And then we got stained glass window right here. And then sliding ladder, and then ball pit. Awesome. So we all built a room. We built a beautiful library. And books. Oh yeah, and the books. I know. We have floor-to-ceiling shelves. Wall-to-wall shelves. So yeah, of course it's a book in the library. So we built this library, this really cool, awesome library, in about a minute and a half. So give yourselves a hand. If we want, we can build a terrible room. You guys want to build a terrible room? What's the worst room? We're going to do it anyway, Mom. What's a terrible room? All right, we're going to do a terrible library. What do you not want in a library? Dampness. Yeah, so it's in the basement.
Mold.
You got mold.
Spiders.
Yeah.
No windows.
So we got a moldy carpet with tons of spiders just in every corner. We got spider webs, cobwebs.
No windows.
No windows. Yeah, basement. It's in the basement.
Bubble gum stuck everywhere.
What is it?
Bubble gum just stuck
Bubble gum.
everywhere.
It's you can't even see the wallpaper. It's just all bubble gum. Chewed up. And it's not even like the good kind. It's like Bazooka Joe bubble gum. It's like that 25 quarter gumballs that you get at the bowling alley. They're like 15 years old. So we have that. We have moldy floors. We have spiders, and what else?
Compost.
That was the books. Those were the books. They're decomposing just in the corner, and that's where the spiders come from. The compost pile is filled with spider eggs. So it's damp, it's terrible, it makes us sad, it makes us depressed. But we also built a room together. That was a cool room. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that experience. I believe that really cool things can happen when we start to imagine together and pool our efforts to build something that we alone could not do. This is my thesis statement. In this thesis, I explore different ways to jumpstart the creative process through introducing randomness to inspire imagination, using rigid systems to accelerate play and encourage personal expression to create meaning. Through designing playful objects and interactions guided by philosophies of improv and the creative process, I construct different ways to enter the world of making, designing, and playing. So this is just a layout, basic layout. We'll be talking with you all today. Start with my contextual research, hit the big four: creativity, play, toys, improv. I'm going to be talking about 6 projects and wrap it all up, hopefully, with a conclusion. So first, what is creativity? What is creativity? It's defined as the use of imagination or original ideas, especially in the production of artistic work. I think this is kind of like a very narrow view of creativity, aimed mostly at the humanities, but I believe creativity exists in all disciplines and can be applied to all disciplines, not just art or English or poetry, drawing. So I'd like to add my own definition with my personal experience in design and improv as the skill to make something new out of existing things, ideas, and systems. So in his book Creativity, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi describes in an interview that he has with a prolific inventor, Jacob Rabinow. So these are Rabinow's rules to be a creative person. So how to be creative according to Jacob Rabinow. These are all skills that you can develop as an individual to cultivate your creative muscles. So these are just individual things that we can do on our own, outside of any environmental context. First of all, you have to know a lot about your interests. Without knowing the context of what you're interested in, your future work will have a weak foundation that doesn't stand up to scrutiny. Secondly, you have to make your ideas real. Put them on paper, make a prototype, see it in the real world. Experience with a certain tool or skill helps make this process easier and more rewarding. So through making our ideas real, we start to master the tools and skills that are needed to produce whatever we want to produce. And thirdly, you have to develop an intuition to discern which ideas are promising and which ideas are bad, just trash. Sharing ideas with others and testing them in the real world helps to prove which ideas have traction. We don't have all the time in the world to test with everybody, and we don't have, sometimes we have limited time to test prototypes. So we have to develop an intuition to really identify and be honest with ourselves and be critical of our own work and say and be okay with just tossing ideas. No idea is really precious. It's not precious until you make it precious. And also, creativity can be accidental. So creative ideas are often portrayed as a light bulb flashing or a lightning strike or even as a result of a mistake. This is Alexander Fleming. He discovered penicillin when he noticed mold on an old petri dish that inhibited the growth of the Staphylococcus bacteria. So it really wasn't his skills that led to the discovery of penicillin. It was really just happenstance, circumstance. Someone left the dishes out, and it was just his observation that led to the discovery of penicillin. So I asked myself, is there a way to increase these happy accidents? If we can't force ourselves to be struck by lightning, we can, but to be struck with creative ideas. You can dress up to be struck by lightning, but it's not until there's actually a lightning storm, which you can't control, that you actually get struck. So anyway, these are just ways to design a creative space. So to design for more creative opportunities, the creative process has to have a low risk for failure. If the risk is too high, we become cautious and risk averse, and we stop feeling creative. We need easy access to knowledge in the form of firsthand experiences, talking with experts, or an easy way to navigate large amounts of information. Creativity needs diversity of information, of perspectives, and being able to sort, arrange, and rearrange data is necessary to make new connections between ideas. If knowledge is inaccessible, research and growth is stunted. It's so easy to get information now, and it's so easy to move our research along. With internet, with Wikipedia, it's so easy to, make connections on a Wikipedia page because certain subjects are hyperlinked, and it's easy to go back and forth and travel between different pages and different domains of knowledge. But we just have to have that skill of being organized, being able to navigate through mountains of information. So we need time, money, materials, and other people to fuel experimentation. Be prepared to mess up and do things over. It's okay. It's okay to have failures. You learn a lot just from messing up. Messing up is just as valuable as having a success. It's just another opportunity to learn. So we need resources to have multiple trials in whatever we want to create. You're not going to write, a poet. Shakespeare probably had lots of drafts. I shouldn't talk about Shakespeare. I barely read. Anyway, setting boundaries and goals is necessary to direct our creative efforts. If we don't have boundaries, we can be easily sidetracked, and without goals, it's hard to measure success or progress. Having a goal helps us to finish. This is a big one for me. I need help on this. Hi, Diana. All right, thank you. That's the end. I hope you enjoyed my talk. Okay. No, just kidding. Moving on. I want to share a short tale about creativity and a creative environment. This is me, age 15 in high school. My brother and I had some friends over for a sleepover, and my mom ordered Chinese takeout for dinner. Breaking out the hits, yeah. So as we ran upstairs to eat dinner, my mom said, "You can have this food as long as you wash your own dishes." We paused and considered not eating anything. We're like, we're not gonna. So we asked ourselves, how can we eat dinner without washing dishes? And this was our solution. So we gathered sandwich bags and plastic utensils for the food. I use plastic bags wrapped with rubber bands from my braces to wrap around the straws to create water pouches. And needless to say, we did not have to wash dishes that night. Yeah, that's 15-year-old me. Okay, but how did this happen? I wanted to ask, how did this happen? It wasn't the most elegant idea. It was a simple and fun workaround to a problem that I cared deeply about, which was not having to wash dishes. Upon closer analysis, this creative idea was the result of an environment that welcomed new ideas. I found that we went through the main steps in the creative thinking process. We had a task. We gathered materials and ideas. We made a prototype, and we tested it. We were in the company of friends that love to make ridiculous decisions. And if we messed up, then it would be easy to clean and start over. So all these things, all these external factors outside of myself, made this possible. It wasn't just me coming up with a weird idea. There was also an environment to support that creative idea and then make it flourish and make it a funny story. Can't say that I can ever do this again, but it was a fun story. Moving on, why play? So what does play have to do with creativity? Play redefines boundaries. When we play, we appropriate the surrounding space, objects, systems, and even other people for play. Parkour transforms this couch into a playground, and the TV show The Office turns a corporate setting into a comedy gold. So when we play with things, they just open themselves up to reappropriation. When we play with things, we search for ways to extract novelty out of the system. So finding the most enjoyable and entertaining things in an object or experience is what we call fun. This is fun. We learn about the world through approaching our surroundings and exploring what new experiences we can unlock through play. So this kid is he's learning the ropes of this slip and slide system. So this child is learning what not to do with the slip and slide, but over time, hopefully, he will improve his running, balance, landing, and slipping and sliding to have the most fun. So, again, we learn naturally through play. Anything is a toy if you play with it. This quote is one of my favorite TV show characters. It's by one of my favorite TV show characters. To me, play is an approach to interacting with the world and helps us to learn new things at our own pace in our own way. So why toys, and what do they have to do with creativity? Simply put, toys start play, and play develops creativity. Once we put our hands on a toy, it is hard to stop fiddling and exploring. When we play with a toy, we explore the possibilities until we settle on something we particularly enjoy. And through exploring, we start to gain skills in manipulating that system. So here we got a little dude who just has a pile of junk and starts interacting with that junk, seeing how those different pieces fit together. Comes up with all these different configurations. Until, when we play with the toy, we explore the possibilities until we settle on something we particularly enjoy. The way we play with toys and the specific toys we choose to play with reveal our creative nature and learning style. Whee! Okay, whoa, that was weird. Okay, so there are some criteria for a good play system, or fancy word for toy. With any medium designed for play, there are criteria for evaluating how effective it is in cultivating creative thinking. According to the Lifelong Kindergarten Group at the Media Lab, a good creative environment has low floors for easy access, high ceilings to encourage growth, and wide walls to accommodate diverse playing styles. So a good toy can be a Lego set. Because it's so easy to use, easy to approach, and once you get good at putting pieces together, you can find increasing complexity with the more pieces, different sets, and you can create challenges for yourself to increase your skills. And also, it's so versatile. People have found so many different applications for Lego. So I consider that a great toy. The system on the left, though, has high floors, low ceilings, and narrow walls, which limits the access, personal expression, and growth of the participants. So with any media, there's physical or digital, there are good and bad examples. Some toys just aren't that fun to play with after a while. They give you a couple of good minutes, a couple of minutes or a couple of days of fun, and then it just becomes boring. So there's not much room for growth or expression. Or if it's hard to use, then or has a steep learning curve, it's not accessible. And lastly, why improv? So I've been doing improv for 8 years, and through my experiences, I have found some striking similarities between design and improv, and the ways they can benefit from each other. Firstly, improv helps us to play well with others. We have all been in this situation before in a group project or in the workplace. Something goes wrong, and we start pointing fingers, redirecting the blame, and feeling miserable. So here, these guys are trying to build a tower. It falls, pointing fingers, and we all feel bad for him. We don't like that guy. But learning improv provides a framework for working better in a team. Once all the players know the same rules, they can start to work together more cohesively. We learn skills such as listening, observing, empathizing, committing, supporting, and adapting to each other and to new ideas. And as we perform together more often, each member is able to be selfless enough to build something bigger than themselves. Once we start to support and trust each other, we can be creative with a collective vision. We can build things that we could not do by ourselves. And coincidentally, these concepts can be applied to all group dynamics, whether it's just a friendship or an office meeting. So this is a classic graphic showing the creative process from a designer's point of view, from inception to execution. So in the beginning, we have a loose idea of what's going on. We start to gather information and trying to find some connections to create a new original concept that kind of springs forward and kind of propels itself into its own design. And we support that design, we heighten it, we refine it, and we test it. And below is a graphic showing how improvisers build a scene, starting with a seed of inspiration. So at the start, we get a one-word suggestion or, a room to start building a room. And we start building out into a full story. So, we use techniques such as yes and, accepting all the ideas as correct and building on top of them to kind of build a base reality, setting the stage for the conceptual direction. And then once we find a funny thing or a track, we start to really hit that track and refine that concept until the scene ends, until we get a laugh. We have to get the laughs. So both practices contain the phases in the creative thinking process. You get an opportunity to create a problem to solve. You gather information through research or through ideas given by others, setting the stage for a more committed concept. Once a conceptual direction arises above the foundational information, both designers and improvisers test ideas or jokes, refine them, and try again until the concept can no longer be elevated. An improv scene happens in a minute or can last a whole hour, while the design process can take anywhere from hours to months to complete. I think of improv scenes as a small design sprint or a small mental exercise in imagining new, ridiculous, alternative realities. So here's a short sketch that shows the power of imagination, but also the power of doubting. It's funny as a piece of comedy, but looking at the structure of the sketch, we can identify the inspiration, how it starts, how they set the stage up, and see how the writers set up the concept, and we can be delighted in how they heighten that concept until it can't be heightened anymore. Do you guys hear that?
Yep.
All right, guys, dinner is...
Oops. Is that sound working?
All right, guys, dinner is served.
What the hell is this?
I made a supper.
Kyle, there's no food on the table.
Yeah, there is.
Where's our dinner, Kyle?
It's on the table. We've got chicken, ribs, spaghetti, mashed potatoes, ice cream, jujubes, and Skittles.
Mashed potatoes, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Kyle, that's incredible. Thanks. Ribs! What is this, a joke?
It's dinner.
What do you mean it's dinner? These dishes are empty.
Oh, yeah, if you look at it that way, of course they're empty.
We'll go get us some real dinner then.
But I made us a 5-course meal, Nick. You just have to believe.
Believe in what?
Believe in the best freaking meal I've ever had in my life. Kyle, kudos.
Is he smoking a cigar?
Yeah.
What is going on?
Well, Super Nintendo stuff.
That doesn't even make any sense. What are you talking about? Stop it! Stop eating that! Stop it! Oh, you're just gonna play imagination? Oh, well then why don't they take this imaginary vase and break it over your imaginary head?
Nick, you're doing it. You're believing. Believe it, Nick.
The power of imagination. That was obviously taken from a scene from Hook, and just inspired by that power of imagining a beautiful dinner, but also doubting and fighting that collective belief or not wanting to believe. Now I'll talk about projects I've done over the past 2 years. I did 10 projects for my thesis. Red are big thesis projects, while the blue icons are smaller case studies. I divided these projects into different categories that embody distinct aspects of play. The first section is called Building Ourselves because the projects provide opportunities for players to express their unique perspectives. Through play and design, whatever we do is a reflection of ourselves. The second section is called Creative Systems. These projects were built with prominent rules and boundaries that help to accelerate creative experimentation. Setting constraints challenges us to push the boundaries. The last part is called Unexpected Fun. A large part of design, play, and improv is an openness to the unexpected and making the best out of whatever is given to us. For the purposes of time, I'll talk about these 6 projects. Ready? Building Ourselves is all about facilitating self-expression and self-discovery through play. It can also be applied to comedy and design. We have different styles, whether in design or comedy, and they are a reflection of our own personalities. And they should be celebrated and an integral part of our creative process. So as I said before, whatever we do, whatever we make, whatever we create, we should put a part of ourselves into it, or else it's not interesting to us. Charna Halpern, one of the founding members of Second City Improv in Chicago, said this about being true to yourself in an improv scene. The truth is funny. Honest discovery, observation, and reaction is better than contrived invention. We should not shy away from who we are. Instead, we should appreciate the process of revealing ourselves. This quote also applies to design. Honest discovery, observation, and reaction should lead to more sustainable and effective products and design solutions. So, first project, Blob Squad, is a character creation toy that uses a plastic body and a moldable head to quickly create expressive figures. This project started as an independent study in my undergrad and became the foundation for my thesis interest at DMI. I actually brought 2 of these guys to my DMI interview. It was very cold and the Sculpey was frozen. So I was kneading probably for about 20 minutes, and I barely changed any of the block. So I was inspired by vinyl art toys, which are considered affordable sculpture. Each figurine basically stands there and holds a singular expression forever, which limits the playability, and the novelty quickly fades away. So I designed Blob Squad to give more creative power to the owner, who can then create whatever face they want. So once I started making faces, it became really easy for me to just imagine characters, their voices, what they do, who they are, their names. Excuse me. I'm fine. I play tested Blob Squad in a middle school art classroom. I gave them 2 to 3 minutes to make a character and to write down specific details about that character's backstory. So on the left or on the right, we see this cat character that this girl created. Her name is Kitty. She lives in Katsopolis. Hobbies include sleeping, being an undercover agent for the CIA, lying and manipulating, tricking people. So those are her hobbies. And what makes her happy? When she goes out for sushi after a successful mission. So this was done in about 5 minutes. This character was done. And it's a very cool, in-depth, complex character of a cat secret agent that loves sushi and loves manipulating people. And I found that whatever you wrote, when you're given that time constraint, you start to put more of yourself. You don't limit yourself. You don't censor yourself. You put yourself into that project just to produce something. So you're drawing from yourself as source material. I saw that when we put them into a group, hilarious stories arose out of collectively improvising a tale involving all the characters. So this was a weird story about this guy named Fried Potato and Tim Can and Hot Dog Head. Landlord, it was really messy breakup. Landlord was caught stealing one of their rooms and they hate him now. This is middle schoolers' thoughts about impressions on moving and apartment renting. So the next project is called Units, and units are modular figurines allowing players to trade parts with each other and communicate through a mobile app. It was inspired by the short film The Perfect Human by Jorgen Leth. The assignment was to design a dynamic media experience inspired by the idea of the perfect human. So I saw the perfect human as one that can empathize perfectly with others. What if sayings like lending a hand and walking in someone else's shoes and seeing through your eyes were literal? A perfect human is one that is able to share their experiences and skills with their community. So it becomes less about the individual and more about a cohesive community between individuals. So this is just a video abstract of the unit system. So you take a picture of your unit guy, and you have them in the physical world, and you have them in your digital app. And you start to forge identities, a physical identity through traded parts, and a digital identity as your unit gets tracked by your mobile app. And once you trade a part with your friend, you get a notification saying that you trade a part, and you can explore whichever unit you traded from. So if you traded a head, you can kind of see where that head traveled. If you traded a leg, you can see where that leg has traveled and where the original owner is. And once you trade a part, you can actually talk to whoever you traded with. It's kind of a tight-knit social network. So, as opposed to having several hundred friends, what if you had a social network where you only had 6 friends? 6 intense, really intimate friends. So intimate that you give an arm for them, or a leg for them. So you can see where they go, where they travel, the timeline of their journey. And so the project was intended to foster empathy in players through sharing their belongings and providing a window into each other's lives by witnessing where those shared pieces travel with other units. And once you bring all the units together in a physical space, you can create all these really cool, crazy Frankenstein creatures, something more than human. The next section is called Creative Systems. And creative systems are systems that involve participants to innovate, create, and test new ideas. A solid scaffolding helps players explore the system while minimizing the chances of failing. So this is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and in his book Creativity, he says accidents, like creativity, are properties of systems rather than of individuals. So as I said about the lightning strike, you can't really force lightning to strike you, but you can design an environment where lightning strikes are more conducive. I think people have done that. But if we see creativity as happy accidents, then can we design systems that increase the chances of successful creations? Omniblocks is, I call it the Swiss Army toy. Is an experimental toy combining a deck of cards, a marker board, building blocks, and augmented reality markers to create a platform for designing new play structures. So I saw the deck of cards as the first game console, capable of containing hundreds of different games because of its structure. You can give it to a couple of 8-year-olds and they'll play Go Fish, or they know Old Maid. You can give it to, you play in Las Vegas and they have so many different kinds of poker games. And they have different skill levels and different people. They attract different types of people. And it just becomes more than a toy, more than a singular game, but as a whole platform for creating and designing your own games. The Eames, Charles and Ray Eames designed the House of Cards as a playful alternative to the deck of cards. So we've all tried to build a house of cards before with regular playing cards. It's really hard. But the Eames, they added simple, 6 simple notches into the structure and made it really easy to build, your own houses. And instead of becoming a way to play games, it becomes a platform for building structures. And also Post-its are powerful creative tools because they can be organized and reorganized and disposed with ease. So Omniblocks provide multiple avenues for playing, and you can use them as a toy, as a game, or as a tool. So you can build them up as building blocks, you can draw on the marker board side, and you can just play cards. I used it to help organize my presentation today. I wrote different subjects on each block and rearranged them until it kind of made structural sense. The first thing I did when I made them was play solitaire. I saw how the structure of the game became a prominent feature. the piles of cards became almost like architecture. Here I observed people playing with the Omni blocks as a card game. We played Hearts, Crazy Eights. It was cool to see how they created their own system of organizing their hands. It became a mix of playing cards and Jenga. On the other side, I used dry erase markers to design faces, build murals with fish, and learn Japanese. So each character was drawn on each face, and it's a cool way to organize, pick out certain characters, and pronounce them all together as strings of words. I brought the Omni blocks to the Boston Children's Museum to be tested with volunteer workers. It was interesting to hear their feedback on how the different activities with the blocks can evolve as the child ages. As a young kid, you can stack blocks. They'll enjoy just stacking. When they're 5 to 8 years old, they can learn spelling and numbers using the cards or just writing their own numbers and letters on the marker board side. And once they get to another age, 8 and up, they can learn card games and even making up their own games. So a potential area I'd like to explore more is the augmented reality space. Imagine being able to carry around 52 virtual toys to play and build stories. Each Omni block will have a distinct marker code that corresponds to a unique 3D model. So this is just a quick test for the AR markers. I was only able to put 2 models in, but they can, the camera can read up to 12 different models at a time, 12 different markers. So here Omni blocks straddle the line between toy and tool. And it would be interesting to see players play with different sides simultaneously, using cards and marker boards together, or the augmented reality and building blocks together. My hope is that it becomes a platform, just like a deck of cards, for designing your own games, or an organizational tool for everyday problems. A more sustainable alternative to Post-it notes, maybe. Tylo. Tylo is the anti-puzzle. Where a puzzle has one way to be put together, Tylo creates beautiful patterns no matter how it's arranged. So it's a very strict system of organizing tiles using only 7 distinct shapes. You can create all these different, really cool, seamless patterns. So the system was inspired by Truchet tiles, designed by Sebastian Truchet in the 17th century. Patterns can be designed just by programmatically arranging them in specific combinations. Even a random assortment makes something visually interesting. So you can see these tiles, each square is just made up of 2 right triangles, 1 black and 1 white, and rotating them, they have 4 different orientations, and arranging them in different patterns creates all these really cool, mesmerizing, trippy patterns. I was also inspired by board games like Labyrinth and Carcassonne, where they have their landscape built by the players as part of the gameplay as opposed to the game designer. And even taking those tiles outside of the game and just playing with them as a way to make your own landscapes as a toy, and not really playing through the game, but just having fun, enjoying the tiles. So this is just a simple blueprint. Using this form language, I tried to keep everything consistent, very geometric and very clean, and precise to keep everything flowing into each other. So it lived as a vector file just on Illustrator for a couple months, and I played with the colors, played with the rotations, made these small modules, and then kind of repeated them to create these really cool, elaborate tapestries. And I laser cut them into 1.5-inch squares, plywood, and it became really cool to see how changing the medium of this system really changed the gameplay. So as opposed to living on a computer, I can lay it out on the desk, on my desk, on a floor, and it can expand beyond a screen. You can make uneven patterns. You could slide the tiles, which wasn't that easy to do in Illustrator. And I had little game pieces and tried to find out different ways to make mazes and turn it into a game. I then had the opportunity to bring this system to Martha's mobile development class, where we were able to submit a mobile application to the App Store. This is Tylo. It's a digital design fidget toy. These are all the designs I did in the past couple months, and you can change all the colors and you can create different moods, and I kind of established different challenges for myself to make letter forms, or to make human faces, or to make goldfish patterns. So with 18 possible shapes in any one given space and 24 spaces, they get this crazy amount, huge number. I don't even know how to pronounce that number. But that's the number of possible permutations of different arrangements that you can make on the Tylo app. So I would say it's almost limitless, especially when you change the colors. So you can download on the App Store and play around. I'd love to hear your feedback. So in conclusion, it was really interesting to explore how different medium for this system changes the way it's played. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but just to be able to experience a simple system of simple shapes and a very controlled environment, and seeing how the medium dictates its own interactions and its own constraints. So the next section is called Unexpected Fun. Having fun is always a delightful surprise. If it's expected or forced, the fun disappears. Designing systems that purposefully incorporate randomness to challenge our preconceptions and encourages us to keep our minds nimble. So improv thrives off of the unexpected. It's built into the practice from beginning to end. Most scenes start off with a single word of inspiration from the audience, and it's up to us to nourish that seed into a full-bloom scene. Oftentimes, it's hard to predict even what my scene partner will say or do, so it's imperative to keep an open mind and remember that nothing will stop a scene faster than being selfish or scared. Creativity is being able to make something new out of the things that we already have. So I really like this quote from Nicholas Negroponte. He says, "Where do new ideas come from? Differences. Creativity comes from unlikely juxtapositions." The way we put these things together, different ideas together, is the creative act. Creativity comes from mixing familiar ideas with unfamiliar ones, so we must expose ourselves to new things. This project is called the Doodle Maker, where you basically get to draw something from nothing. It's a processing application program where I program random shapes to pop up, and you can add on to those shapes if you see a shape that seems promising. So this stems from my frustration of feeling like I'm drawing the same thing over and over again. My characters aren't interesting enough. They look static. They look very boring. And I got used to them, and I wasn't very interested anymore. So I found that a new way to design characters was by starting out with the silhouette first. As opposed to just drawing eyes or a head, you start with the silhouette and kind of fill in the details, the interior details and exterior details later. Also some inspiration from inkblot tests, where you're challenged to see something naturally. You're not really trying to force anything, but you just kind of see whatever comes up first. So this is the first iteration. It consisted of just one square, one circle, and two lines. And this is what I made out of it. It's not very inspiring in my head. I tried my best, okay? I tried my best. This is the second iteration, so I added two quadrilaterals and two circles. I broke the staticness of the rectangle and created more interesting triangles. And made a little hedgehog dude. So it's getting a little bit better. I added a Bezier curve, to get more graceful, to to get more graceful curves and try to break out of the rigidity of sharp corners. And I made a cool modern mecha tank. So this is just a video demo of how you would play with the Doodle Maker. So you pick a shape that you like and you just start drawing on top of it. It's very cute. Little animal dude until you see him smoking a cigarette. It's not so cute anymore. So I just wanted to add something to a focal point for him to look at. Christine, something. And I designed a game pad or a control pad for users to press on one button, they get thick white lines. Press on another button, they get thin dark lines, and also a button to save. I tested it at Fresh Media. It was really cool to see people of all ages and of all skill levels just try it out and pitch in their own creations. The point is not to have really cool creations, right off the bat. It's not designed for that. It's just designed to challenge people's preconceptions and to get them, feeling like their drawing's already halfway done, so they might as well just finish it. So here's some drawings I did recently. It was really cool to see my progression from the first iterations to drawings that I'm actually impressed with. I could not have done these drawings or imagined these subjects without the system. This goes to show how unexpected stimuli can be used to inspire us to think outside our normal conventions. The last project I'm going to talk about is called Rigged, the Random Inventor Game. So this one is most similar to the design process and improv. It's actually taken from an improv game called Dueling Salesmen. And the way you play the Random Inventor Game is you choose 2 topics to explore. They can be nouns, verbs, or adjectives. So in this case, I chose tools and foods. So very broad subjects, but they have some interesting entries. And then you'd write down, in your group, each person would write down one word, or you get 5 words relating to each topic on index cards. So for tools, you write hammer, saw, screw, drill. And then for foods, you write salad, burger, apple, chicken. Shuffle those cards for each topic and place them face down into 2 piles. Then you flip over 1 card from each topic. You get drill, chicken. And you draw as many product ideas that connects the 2 words in around 2.5 minutes. So this is the analog version that I played I tested with different groups, non-designers and designers. And it was a really cool way to get them thinking outside the box and see, okay, I'm familiar with the drill, I'm familiar with the chicken, but when you combine them, it kind of changes the concept, the context of each object. And the way you put them together is a creative act. So if we're thinking about a drill and a chicken, is it a drill designed for a chicken, so a chicken can do its own barn repair, or is it a drill that is designed specifically to remove the liver from the chicken? There are different ways to combine these 2 ideas together. So I started designing an interface that would streamline the interaction of just writing things down on paper and shuffling them together, and keep everything in just one program. So you'd choose your topics in that first screen, step 1. Step 2, you'd enter 5 examples of each topic that you selected. So for electronics and outdoor activities, you have a CD player, iPhone, laptop, TV, watch, combined with camping, going to the beach, raking leaves, hiking, bird watching. Step 3, it would shuffle, and it would give you a timer and draw as many ideas combining a CD player and bird watching. So maybe this is a CD player that helps you identify bird calls, or it's a CD player that keeps you focused or gives you tips on how to do bird watching. So you'd write down as many ideas on your Post-it notes. When the time is up, you kind of share your ideas with the others. And if they accept it, then that's a point. If they don't accept it, if they feel like you didn't combine the ideas well enough or you missed an idea, it's no points. So this is a video abstract for the Random Inventor game. So I tested rig with a group of students at Northeastern University. These guys were actually part of an improv group at Northeastern, so they came up with really funny ideas.
For the mom who has to make up on the go. Oh, yeah, that was a pretty common idea.
Mine is slightly different. It's built in so that the mom can keep pushing, and the lipstick container is there,
that's
and the mirror is there, so she can like.
First is some hoop earrings that have little attachments that you can attach to your shoulder, so when you're running, they don't.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
That's really cool. Oh.
You need to wear earrings while you're at it.
The second, these hoop earrings have pedometers on them. So you can tell.
That's what I just drew.
So if you have the same idea, you compete in a pitch-off, which you're able to face off against each other.
But more fashionable. They have a little button that you can click. Well, it always tracks your steps. We have a little button you can click to start and stop, so you can see how fast you're going. There's an app. It's called Hoopla. It's great. You got Bluetooth connectivity. So you can see how fast you ran, how far you ran, number of steps you took, and for $5 extra, you can buy some clips to attach them to your shoulders while you're running.
All right, Tam, go.
Alright, mine is also like a Fitbit, but mine, you can like, since it's a hoop, you can like put the hoop up on your ear and make it Bluetooth, and you can like talk to people, so it's also with the phone. And it also tells the time, and you like need to know. And you can like take it off, like check it. It also converts into a bracelet, so like when you want to wear it as a bracelet, you can, and when you like want to be fashionable, you can just put it as an earring. So it's like a very dual capacity product.
So the idea of the pitch-off allows us to, the pitch-off usually happens when people come up with the same idea. It's kind of like the easiest solution. But once people come up with the same solution, their challenge is to kind of distinguish their own ideas from their competitors. So kind of like in a real product market, if you have a similar product, you have to really distinguish either through branding or through different features. And this is just a fun, really quick, improvised way for non-designers to kind of get that experience of challenging normal ideas or basic solutions. And coming out of the pitch-off, they have ideas that are more specific and I feel like are stronger concepts than the ideas that they came in with. So, improv game number 2, we're going to play a little bit of Dueling Salesman. I'm just going to take 2 random words. We're just going to go rapid fire. And I'm going to try and improvise some products for you. So I'll get one word from here.
Banana.
Banana. Okay. And another word from here.
Caterpillar.
Banana and caterpillar. Oh my gosh, I like that. Okay. So banana caterpillar is it's a new genetically modified organism that is designed specifically to eat bananas so you don't have to. I don't like caterpillars. So you buy a jar of banana caterpillars and it would eat the caterpillars for you while your family is looking. All right, another word.
Tower.
Tower, and hello, and
Chair.
chair. All right, tower and chair. All right, so this is for the President of the United States. He sits on his tower chair on his and it's so tall, it's even taller than the Washington Monument. So You have to set new building ordinances that no building can be taller than the tower chair. You're also able, once you're on the tower chair, you're tasked with defending the eastern seaboard because you're the one that can see the farthest, along the coast. One more word.
Lifesaver.
Lifesaver.
Balloon.
Balloon. Okay, lifesaver balloon. This is lifesaver candy. That there was a merger between lifesavers and airheads, and so they use it's just mixed branding. It was kind of like an April Fool's joke, and frankly it did okay. They just had like little round things made out of like little donut shapes cut out of just airhead taffy. It wasn't that good of a but the point is, it's just I'm getting ideas and I'm just generating things really quickly. Not every idea is going to be good, but it's just exercising that quick iteration, and you can toss that lifesaver idea out the window. I'm running over. In conclusion, 3 traits of an effective creative. It's kind of how I came in. Through my search, I thought there was like an easy hack to hack my brain, hack my lifestyle, to be a more creative person. But it really just boils down to these 3 things. First, an effective creative must be willing to learn. So you have to be willing to open your mind up to new things, new ideas, and to learn more about whatever's new on the horizon. An effective creative must be willing to work. You have to be willing to put your ideas on paper, to experiment with things, things look so much better inside our own heads. And it's not until we put them out that we can really judge how good they are. An effective creative must be willing to share. You have to be able to present your ideas to other people. If you want to be creative, you have to share it to whoever shares that domain of expertise. So if I wanted to be a toy designer, in order for me to have an effective creative toy, I have to be able to share it and to explain it and to get feedback from other toy design experts, or else I'm just living in my own head and I think I'm the best toy designer. So all 3 of these aspects are constantly in flux. They're not distinct steps, but they flow into each other in no specific order. I like to use this simple framework for guiding my future creative process and to remind me to humble myself and find areas to improve on. So just a little note about physical and digital interaction. Physical toy is always on. They provide immediate feedback and appeal to our sense of touch, smell, sight, even taste, and hearing. They are as much a part of the world as we are. They can interact with our surroundings and inhabit the spaces. Digital toys, on the other hand, are not as dependent on the context. They can be turned off, paused, reset, and shared over the internet. So they exist in kind of like a space in between our physical world, but it's also very accessible to people across long distances. When designing integrated experiences, I wanted to bring out the best of both worlds. Play creates alternate realities. We have to be playful enough in order to imagine new realities, new possibilities. When I'm playing with, a pen, banging on the table, I'm imagining, I'm a drummer, or I'm trying to make a cool beat or something like that. When we are playing with new ideas or coming up with new design concepts, we have to imagine the reality that it's going to exist in, that you want it to exist in, and use that to judge the validity of that idea. And finally, play is like trying to catch a feather. I know I say all the benefits of play, like it's a new fad for hacking your creativity in your workspace, your work productivity. But in reality, I found that the more you try to focus on play and try and capture the essence of it, the more it escapes you. So if you have a feather or a piece of lint, the more you try and grab it, you're creating just currents in it. It escapes your grasp. The harder you try and grab it. So embracing play is really being open-minded. It's being patient. It's being observant, and it's also being humble and giving up a part of yourself and letting the feather just kind of settle into your hand. You're not going to catch it all the time, but you're more likely to catch it if you come from under as opposed to grasping at it directly. Thank you.
Proud of you,
much. I really appreciated your presentation. Some things I really enjoyed was your redefinition of creativity. You know, particularly coming from an institution that's hung its hat on creativity without explaining what it is and acknowledging that the definition that we typically go by really lives with the humanities. It was something that really resonated with me right away. So thank you for doing that. Other things I noticed that I just really enjoyed was that how most of your work starts as a physical prototype before ever going into a digital realm. I feel like that's just such a great way of working, just a great way of doing. So I really enjoyed seeing all these physical prototypes and then seeing them kind of lead to something else. The other thing, you say that you're using rigid systems to accelerate play, but you may want to expand that definition a bit more.
Okay.
I think all the games have really great prompts. You provide everybody with something, and the participants readily understand where to fill in the blanks, and that's what's really nice. It just feels like you have the right amount of constraints and the right amount of flexibility for someone to engage. And in thinking about the way that you organized your games or organized all your projects, building ourselves, let's see, the systems, what was it called?
Creative systems.
Creative systems, sorry, I can't read my own writing.
It's okay.
And unexpected fun. I would say you may want to try an alternate way of organizing them, maybe just for yourself and looking at them, organizing by their systemic approaches. So, for instance, the ones that follow more determinate systems, which might be more rigid systems, others that have indeterminate systems where the rules might be a little bit variable and then that leads to spontaneous outcomes. I see your rigged game as being sort of an indeterminate system. And then other games that have more determinate systems where you have explicit rules that lead to varied outcomes. You know, where I felt like some of your other games, like Tylo, was something that could fall into that vein. So I would say just overall, I don't have any real criticism because I just really enjoyed everything that I saw. Particularly the gifts. Seeing that kid fall on his face got funnier the more it replayed over and over again. My only other comment that I thought of with the units, which I thought was really cool, was this ability to kind of track a part and the history of the part and where it's been. Perhaps you may want to introduce sort of collector's items or rare parts or Easter eggs or something built into the game, into it that might make some things a little more like, oh, I really want to get that special arm, or I don't know, but other types of accessories.
Leo, it's been a joy to work with you from the very beginning. I remember that cold day you came in and talked to us, and I remember the toys, and I'm like, oh, he's got to come here. I think what's impressed me from the get-go, and you actually, believe it or not, everybody, he left projects unstated today in his presentation. There's more projects that he didn't talk about that were just as great. The Heist project was great.
Oh yeah.
The first project we did for Design Studio 1 was wonderful. I don't know how it fits into what you've done, but it's there somewhere. What's impressed me from the very beginning is how closely aligned your ideas for what you wanted to do are with the final product and the entire process all the way through. I feel like in many ways your toys are self-explanatory. We get what you wanted to do because it's so clearly realized in the final product itself, you know. And how easily you've moved from analog to digital, and then that again has been fantastic. We really, it's so refreshing to see that playfulness, the sense of humor, the real interactivity that we see so often in the physical manifested again in the interaction and the digital part. It's been really a joy to see. So.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to add is I really appreciate the testing that you went through, that you actually had people test out your games, and both from a variety of age ranges and variety of audiences. So my question would be like, what do you want to do with all of this? Like, what's next?
Oh, be a toy designer.
I think you should run like creativity workshops and make like a lot of money. You know, like I can see, well, first of all, I can see like you know, my daughter's in school and she hates school, and she's like a kid who used to love learning, and I see like, you know, the models with the heads and coming up with a narrative. It's so ingenious for getting kids to think in a different way. But I can also see these run as workshops for grown-ups, you know, in like brainstorming sessions. So I would just really encourage you to think on the scalability of this. You know, you may love making toys, but I could see that there's a much broader market with a need for this kind of thinking.
Yeah. I really wanted to design systems that appeal to all ages and encourage lifelong learning. They're not just toys for kids, but toys. I see toys as tools for creativity for adults and kids. So it really blurs the boundary between work and play, between kids and adults. But yeah, thank you.
All right, Leo, thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, Dan, I ran into your time.
Just no time for your present.
Nice job, Leo. Thanks, man. Congratulations.
You too.
How did it take your group so long? Your group was really going to make this over time.
It took some convincing.
You had to convince them.
Yeah, I had to.
Glad you did. Leo, I use some of those for my classes. Like that little skull with the face thing. I could totally see in like arts and like English class or something. And then the last one, Rig, I started doing improv things with my students because I wanted to experiment. They tried it out one day and they were like kind of not excited about the project, but kind of like I just set them off. They want to do it all the time now. Like, can we play it? We were doing one with this taxi driver. He hit 4 chairs.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I love that. We started making up different ones on the spot because I didn't have any experience with it. But it was so much fun.
I have a bunch of creative games.
If you have not downloaded Archive, it's free. Yeah. And it's addictive. Every single week in class, they would be presenting, other people would be presenting, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't have to do that for anyone because I'll just be a fish. It's a whole folder. It's like the fidget things, like the spinners. It's like so much fun.
Wait, is it only on iPhone?
Yeah. Sorry.
I guess I can do it on an iPad. We can try it, but I'm not sure if it works live. I think we tried it and it crashed. So it's not on iPad. Oh, really? I said it thinks it's iPhone running more of those problems. Yeah, it's just an app that are programmers. I think Fred downloaded it on either app I see or just one available. Yeah, try it. I'm gonna look for it.
So you've lost me again. I love Kylo so much. You have no idea. Sorry to everyone else in my app. This is good. Shut up. I'm gonna try to go. You literally designed something like my favorite. But I would love like some beautiful handcrafted tiles. Like I would buy a set as well.
Leo.
Like I really would.
That's okay.
No, go ahead, Dan. Do you have a question? Sorry.
Oh, no, after you're done. I can't get the sound to work.
All right, Leo, I feel like your mom should come up here. Come on, Mom. Sorry, Dad. Or maybe your dad's here too. Don't you see it? These guys, you want to stand next to your son?
Yes!
So, Leo, we're delighted to say that you successfully fulfilled every requirement for the MFA degree from the Dynamic Media Institute at MassArt.
Grab Katie. Is it HDMI?
Let's try that. Is it off? No. Okay. And then, should be good. Just if you just press output, yeah, that's it. So this
This device has no output.
So this should be it. I mean, that should be. It should be on. We just need to play something to double check if you want to try
let's
something.
try something.
Yeah. I thought everyone was yelling at me because you wanted to start.
No.
Viewed for students. Meet Annie. Annie is a junior in the graphic design department at MassArt, and she's enrolled in Martha's typography class.
Down.
Okay, I'm good.
Do you want to see that it should be fine?
Yeah,
It's all right.
should be good.
Yeah. All right, cool. Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Yeah.
Okay. We good? Good afternoon. Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Vlahos, and today I will be walking you through my thesis, The Education of a Communication Designer, 7 Speculative Projects in Learning Experience Design. While putting together this presentation, I struggled with where to start, but then it hit me. With all I learned about improvisation and chance from my research on John Cage, I would pick a random spread from my book and start there. And here's where I ended up. Pages 86 through 87, just a few pages into my project case study for fingering randomizer for B-flat trumpet. I will talk about this project in a bit, but for now, I want to focus on this image. Let's zoom in. This photo was taken in 1995 during the annual Festival Disney World Jazz Competition. On the left is Sean Smith, who is now Director of Bands for Methuen Public Schools in Methuen, Mass. And my high school classmate Steve Rayoon is on the right. And that's me in the middle. Please note that I still occasionally wear the cool shades. Growing up in the Boston suburb of Haverhill, I was deeply fortunate to have access to a world-class music education program that was integrated into the city's public school system. Through the school's music program, I was trained on the trumpet by Joe Leary, a graduate of the renowned Berklee College of Music. Joe provided us with a lifelong passion and appreciation for music, performance, education, and the arts. That said, Mr. Leary had a distinctly different approach to creative education than my own. The Academy Award-winning 2014 film Whiplash provides a similar account to my high school jazz education under Mr. Leary. And yes, Leary was known to throw objects from time to time. And yet, Mr. Leary led bands to the highest level national competitions with what he called his code of performance. And it was quite simple to remember. Accept nothing less of yourself but your best. Being in a band was what Leary called a social medium, one that provided many developmental benefits. Years later, after his retirement, Leary listed them out. For my fellow educators in the room, I would venture to guess that you could devise your own list, but it would likely be very similar to Leary's. Moreover, as my thesis interests gradually shifted towards education, I began to contemplate these benefits more deeply. I wondered how I could integrate them into my dynamic media projects, and I wondered how technology is affecting these issues. In high school, I would often skip breaks and lunch to spend time with this woman. Susan Paradis headed up the art department in my high school, and she was the person who first introduced me to my beloved profession, graphic design. Susan encouraged me to apply to MassArt and helped me assemble my application. A MassArt alum herself and an accomplished children's book illustrator, Susan went on to train countless interdisciplinary artists and educators. Below is just one of her students, Rob Zombie, the Grammy-nominated musician, actor, director, filmmaker, and screenwriter. In the mid-90s, I began experimenting with early versions of HTML. Here's a screenshot of AOL Press, the software I used to create my very first web pages. With AOL Press, one could navigate to any page on the web, copy it, edit it, and easily save it onto your own web server. While excellent in-browser editing tools still exist, I fear we have actually made it much harder for young folks to just jump right in. In my high school's computer lab, we had Power Macs loaded with Photoshop, and it was awesome. In my senior year, my parents received a disciplinary note from the high school. Earlier in the day, I had changed the administrative passwords in the labs so that I could use Photoshop anytime I wanted to. In 1996, I was accepted to MassArt, hoping to study either graphic design or art education. If you can get past the Creative Shield logo, you'll note that in 1996, the word design wasn't even part of MassArt's full name. As I entered MassArt as an undergraduate, I believe there were three primary questions driving my academic interests. One, with an interest in music, art, education, and technology, I wondered, how might these interdisciplinary creative interests connect? Two, what is graphic design? I was curious to better understand this. Nobody except for my high school art teacher, Mrs. Paradis, really seemed to know. And three, largely due to my fascination with early HTML, I wondered how these newer digital technologies might also apply. As I prepared for this presentation, I went back and reread my statement of purpose I submitted to DMI when I first applied, which was nearly 15 years after graduating from MassArt with my BFA. Lo and behold, the very same issues I grappled with as I entered MassArt as an undergraduate resurfaced, but in significantly new ways. Each of my 7 thesis case studies addresses these questions in various ways and to different degrees. My work in DMI largely consists of 7 comprehensive projects, which are all chronicled as in-depth case studies within my book. For each project, I also created a short video abstract. If I were to string together all 7 of my video abstracts, they would run for nearly 25 minutes. I'm not going to subject you to that today, but all of my 7 videos are available on my website. The first 4 projects were completed within my first year in DMI, and each project explored an area which might be best termed learning experience design. or LX for short. The term may have been coined by Connie Malamed, a learning experience designer, as recently as 2015. All four of these first-year video abstracts have been shown in prior reviews, except for one, which I'm excited to share with you for the first time today. Fingering Randomizer for B-flat trumpet is a custom-designed software interface for trumpet players at all levels. The software is based on chance, presenting 3 pennies that spin and randomly land on either heads or tails. If a penny lands on heads, the software tells the player to depress that valve. The player then decides what note to play, and the note is digitally recorded. Let's take a look. Oh, sorry. This project brazenly approached my 3 driving questions. 1, in a project that involved musical performance and software interface design, it was nicely interdisciplinary. 2, in designing this functional software system, it helps redefine what a graphic designer is and what they can do. And 3, by using algorithmic chance, I was able to explore new ways for technology to be employed in the service of designing new learning experiences. In How We Learn by Benedict Carey, there's a chapter entitled Learning Without Thinking. In it, Carey describes how grandmaster chess players can often compete and win against computers that consider more than 200 million possible moves. Carey's analysis of chess players could not be more applicable to fingering randomizer for B-flat trumpet. According to Carey, in the 1960s, Adrian de Groot, a psychologist who was also himself a chess player, observed that chess masters could do one thing novices could not: memorize a chess position after seeing the board for less than 5 seconds. One look, and they could reconstruct the arrangement of the pieces precisely, as if they'd taken a mental picture. In my short time using the fingering randomizer to construct chords, the chords themselves became more pleasing and more expressive. In many ways, this was not intentional, but rather it was, as Carey describes, learning without thinking. This kind of learning may best be called perceptual learning. In 1969, Eleanor Gibson published Principles of Perceptual Learning and Development, a book that brought together all her work and established a new branch of psychology, perceptual learning. Perceptual learning, she wrote, is not a passive absorption, but an active process, the sense that exploring and searching for perception itself is just active. We do not just see, we look. We do not just hear, we listen. Now in its 3rd edition, The Education of a Graphic Designer is a collection of essays assembled by legendary design educator Stephen Heller. This book has served as the prime reference for my research in DMI. But early on, something struck me as odd. In the spring of 2007, Stephen Heller penned an article in I Magazine entitled, What Do We Call Ourselves Now?, which asked the question, in a world of brand specialists and information architects, is it enough to call ourselves graphic designers without sounding overly specialized or, in Heller's words, obsolete? Heller goes on to describe how it was W.A. Dwiggins who first coined the term graphic design in 1922. Although the term and the profession did not achieve widespread usage until after the Second World War. Heller states that in modern times, the term graphic design is now becoming obsolete, citing his intentional exclusion of the term from his co-founding of the School of Visual Arts Designer as Author MFA program. To further his point, since 2007, we have seen even more subsets of the graphic design profession added. These include user experience design and interaction design, which are both emerging and growing rapidly. Regarding the term graphic design, I have begun to develop a slightly different perspective than Heller. I see graphic design as a visually focused modality, perhaps alongside other modalities, audible, kinesthetic, etc., that collectively contribute to the design and experience of communication. Communication design, which is a term that is also growing in use, could be seen as a broader umbrella discipline with many subsets or concentrations, and among them is graphic design, user experience design, and interaction design. This semantic position informs the title of my thesis, The Education of a Communication Designer, which of course is a play on Heller's anthology. The subtitle of my thesis, 7 Speculative Projects in Learning Experience Design, reflects my focus on exploring the possibilities for and the implications of applying this expanded practice of communication design specifically to the design of learning experiences. Within Heller's book, I came across the following passage by Professor Gunnar Swanson of East Carolina University, who in 1994 authored a call to reconsider graphic design more broadly as a liberal art. Swanson writes, "We must begin to believe our own rhetoric and see design as an integrative field that bridges many subjects that deal with communication, expression, interaction, and cognition. Design should be about meaning and how meaning can be created. Design should be about the relationship of form and communication. It is one of the fields where science and literature meet. It can shine light on hidden corners of sociology and history. Design's position as a conduit for and shape of popular values can be a path between anthropology and political science. Art and education can both benefit through the perspective of a field that is about expression and the mass dissemination of information. Designers, design educators, and design students are in a more important and interesting field than we seem to recognize." Swanson's call for design as an integrative field deeply informed my 7 case studies. The 4 subjects he mentions, communication, expression, interaction, and cognition, became the 4 key themes that unite all 7 of my DMI projects. Communication, expression, interaction, and cognition. Try as I might with countless drafts of my thesis abstract, I struggled to find the common thread across my work, and suddenly there they were, staring me in the face and encouraging me to push this work further. Even the work I completed before DMI gained renewed relevancy. Color Piano, my undergraduate degree project on the interaction between and cognition of color and music. An integrated branding campaign for Volkswagen, which moved forward the then new concept of employing one interdisciplinary creative team to develop every facet of a brand's communication: advertising, PR, design, and interactive. Harvard Innovation, my environmental branding and design strategy program in Alston. First a building and now a whole campus designed to promote interdisciplinary interaction, innovation, and active learning. The contextual research cited in my case studies also adheres to these 4 themes. Page 54 references Drama Queens, a 2011 work by the internationally known art duo Elm Green and Dragset. Elm Green and Dragset's screenplay features the cast of remote-controlled, iconic 20th century sculptures. As each piece takes its moment in the spotlight, Drama Queen embarks on a satirical and insightful take on the shifting nature of art and its relationship with institutions. Beyond the 4 themes listed here, I found this type of work inspirational, as Elm Green and Dragset did not overtly set forth the goal of designing a learning experience, and yet it so clearly is. The projects completed in my first year of DMI hit on Gunnar Swanson's 4 themes in nearly equal measure. The first was Isabella, my site-specific multimedia installation proposal for Boston's Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. Isabella is comprised of a series of framed screens that dynamically present a motion and sound activated likeness of Isabella Stewart Gardner, the founder of the museum. The installation is intended to educate museum visitors through the contextual conversations that emerge throughout the museum.
I'm not usually one for bronze. I spent many summers in Venice. Well now, I suppose culture isn't for us all. Keep quiet. Don't touch.
I got a little carried away. And by the way, that's my wife who played Isabella. Another first-year project, Metapieces, is an interactive touchscreen table that engages participants in the deconstruction and abstract reconstruction of well-known paintings in Western art. Metapieces encourages museum visitors to view art, but also create art. The touchscreen table is also connected to a high-end printer, allowing participants to print their work and leave the museum with a souvenir of their own creation.
Presents my boys of a posse, so just jack up politics, and the star symbolizes the power, making the suckers and weak brothers cower. We got strong, intelligent minds slogan is a D-hot gift. You better get a job quick. See, you can't rhyme and all your beats are weak. You wanna take a peek and check out the technique.
Can designing a typographic character be a learning experience? The perfect character envisions a scenario where a visitor can custom design a typographic character, in this case an uppercase letter, using a series of slider controls. The character the visitor designs is then dynamically inserted into a motion graphics-based film.
Walking, running, jumping, falling. No, get much, any problem. Look how it falls. How does it fall? This is how it falls. This is how it falls. Oh, this is it. This is how it falls. Here's the character. This is how it falls. Here's the character.
How can you resist making type dance? Thank you, Phil. These first-year projects laid the foundation for a more focused and interconnected investigation into the design of multimodal interactive learning systems in my second year. The summer between my first and second year in DMI was spent watching my now 2-year-old son, Miles, and working 3 days a week with the Boston-based nonprofit Youth Design. Over the summer, I received an unexpected phone call from Joe Quackenbush, who asked if I would be interested in taking on a 1-year temporary position teaching full-time in MassArt's graphic design department. Teaching while completing my studies in DMI have provided me with a unique perspective of an embedded designer, teacher, and researcher, or what the Royal College of Arts Sir Christopher Frayling identifies as the 3 key modes of design research: research into design, research through design, and research for design. Using Frayling's 3 modes of design research, I developed a triptych of speculative software applications that envision dynamic media learning tools specifically for art and design education: StudioMate, CritiqueMate, and LectureMate. StudioMate is a peer-to-peer help system for studio communities. CritiqueMate is a system for exploring critique methods and managing feedback. And LectureMate is a multimodal system for viewing and understanding lectures. Unlike my first 4 projects, these next 3 projects all started with the collection of primary research. Here's a 1-page survey that I handed out on the 9th floor design studios prior to developing StudioMate. Feedback from both students and educators at MassArt proved invaluable while designing these apps. Let's check out the video abstract for StudioMate. Oh.
Meet Chris. Chris is a junior in the graphic design department at MassArt. Like many of his classmates, Chris loves working on his projects in the studios. There's plenty of space to work, and he enjoys being around other hard-working students. Chris is designing a book and could use some help learning InDesign. Meet Mariah. Mariah is also a junior in the graphic design department at MassArt, and like Chris, she really enjoys working in the studios. Mariah loves books and is great with InDesign. So how do we connect Chris, who needs help with InDesign, with Mariah, who knows it? Say hello to Studio, a peer-to-peer help system for studio communities. Here's the Studio Mate website and app. At the core of the interface is the I Need Help With menu, which contains a programmable list of topics. Chris's studio is full of graphic designers and illustrators, so the topics programmed by the studio manager reflect those particular interests. Topics can range from software training and tutoring to love advice. Oh. Users can further filter results by major, gender, year, or proposed meeting time, and then sort them by name, ratings, and other criteria, with the results shown in real time. StudioMate users can browse potential helpers in 3 view modes: Headshot View, List View, and Studio View. Okay, Chris, let's book that meeting with Mariah. Select vital details such as who will bring any needed supplies, then send your request. You can always go back and edit a request later on. A notification is sent to Mariah, asking if she can make the meeting. She accepts, and a confirmation message is sent to Chris. The meeting is all set, and Chris gets the InDesign help he needs the very next day. But there's more. StudioMate is built for educators and administrators as well. With robust analytics features, StudioMate provides a sortable database of help requests that assists educators in understanding the shifting interests and broad needs of students before issues arise. That's StudioMate, a peer-to-peer help system for studio communities.
StudioMate comes at a time where creativity, design, collaboration, and interdisciplinary interaction are increasingly coveted cultural and pedagogical qualities. In 2002, Richard Florida released the national bestseller, The Rise of the Creative Class, and how it's transforming work, leisure, community, and everyday life. In his book, Florida traces a fundamental theme that runs through a host of seemingly unrelated changes in American society: the growing role of creativity in our economy. Here's a quick summary. Millions of us are beginning to work and live much as creative types like artists and scientists always have. Our values and tastes, our personal relationships, our choices of where to live, and even our sense and use of time are changing. Leading this transformation are the 40 million Americans, over a third of our national workforce, who create for a living. This creative class is found in a variety of fields, from engineering to theater, biotech to education, architecture to small business. Their choices have already had a huge economic impact. In the future, they will determine how the workplace is organized, what companies will prosper or go bankrupt, and even which cities will thrive or wither. I began to see how an app like StudioMate could move beyond the traditional studio. Here are 2 of my MassArt students in an impromptu peer learning session. While there are certainly many benefits to peer learning, it also raises concerns among some educators. Here's an excerpt from The Benefits of Peer Learning, an article written by Mary Ellen Weimer. Weimer states, peer learning gets troublesome for many faculty due to the idea that students are teaching each other. Isn't that our job? Students aren't paying all those tuition dollars to learn from other students, and they aren't shy about saying as much. Students are paying to be taught by experts. If we're not the ones teaching, we sometimes feel guilty. What stands alongside these concerns is all sorts of evidence documenting that students can and do learn from each other. It's something they seem to understand intuitively, if not explicitly. Unlike LectureMate and CritiqueMate, StudioMate moved beyond speculation and was further refined under the direction of Martha Reddick and her husband Pascal in this semester's mobile app design class. For this second phase, I was teamed with Robert Hamill, a graduating undergraduate graphic design student, and Dominic Laudate, an undergraduate computer science major at Wentworth Institute of Technology. I'm happy to share that on May 2nd, Studio Mate was approved by Apple and is available for download from the App Store for the very reasonable price of free. Now I'd like to show just a quick clip of my LectureMate abstract. Oh, sorry guys.
Pause. Select GSD. Define. Graph. Reposition GSD. Above architecture. Link GSD to architecture. Play.
And finally, let's see a clip from my Critic Mate abstract.
Now let's see what Critic Mate can do for students. Meet Annie. Annie is a junior in the graphic design department at MassArt, and she's enrolled in Martha's typography class. Annie is seeking a better way to manage the feedback she receives both inside and outside of class. In student mode, Annie can manage and track the feedback she receives in all her studio courses. Using Critic Mate, students can post images of projects and get feedback from instructors and peers before, during, and after the actual critique date. Annie's page indicates that she has received a new comment on her project. Annie has received a helpful suggestion from her classmate Connor, and she makes the change before the actual critique date. Thanks, Connor. Critique Mate is a great place to store feedback from the actual critique as well. Using the Critique Mate app, students can record or upload audio recordings of their critique. The audio is automatically transcribed into text for easy annotation and review at a later date.
I certainly think this is helpful. You might consider annotating those circles so that the user knows what content is associated with which step.
The lecture, the studio, and the critique. While not all-encompassing, these three components of design education are pillars that I believe were worthy of more consideration and experimentation. LectureMate gives us a multimodal system for viewing and understanding lectures. Critique Mate provides a system for exploring critique methods and managing feedback. And Studio Mate provides a peer-to-peer help system designed specifically for studio communities. Together, these three speculative solutions create a system that is tightly interconnected, both conceptually and technologically. I'd like to pull up my original three questions. Now let's layer in the four themes I derived from Gunnar Swanson's text. And lastly, let's add in the three modes of design research defined by Sir Christopher Frayling. In my 2 years in DMI, I was able to significantly chip away at my three questions, develop a body of work around Swanson's four themes, and employ Frayling's three modes of design research. In addition, I completed my first year as a full-time assistant professor of graphic design. So what's next? Starting tomorrow at 9 a.m. and ending on June 1st, I'm working with designer Mark Manelli on a comprehensive rebranding of New England Conservatory of Music. Number 2. This is what I'm really excited about. We already know it's a girl. I just hope I don't get the call while we're at the Squealing Pig. And 3, for those that don't know already, I have accepted well, I have some fantastic news to share. I've accepted a tenure track assistant professor position teaching graphic design in the Visual and Performing Arts Department at Merrimack College, which on a good day is just a 45-minute drive north of Boston. One of the initiatives I'm looking forward to at Merrimack is the Interdisciplinary Institute, which is housed within the School of Liberal Arts. Here's a description of the Institute and its goals off the Merrimack website. The Interdisciplinary Institute at Merrimack College embraces the potential for new knowledge, new ways of understanding, and new insights on complex questions that can come from integrating the theoretical and methodological approaches of more than one field of study. To address the pressing and complicated questions of the 21st century, the work of this institute combines the research approaches, skills, and perspectives of such fields as visual and performing arts, history, psychology, sociology, economics, women and gender studies, biology, and many others. The Institute similarly embraces work that recognizes the importance of intersectionality, the way in which various political, social, and cultural identities shape experience and knowledge. Before I wrap up, there are really so many people to thank: my classmates, my colleagues, my instructors, and my family. There are 4 people in particular that I just want to take a moment to recognize. My wife, Meredith McGowan. To think that one of the smartest, most caring, and generous people I have ever met just happens to be my wife. Sorry. None of this would have been possible without her. A short story. I ran into Professor Emerita Liz Resnick in the hallway a few months ago, and she said this: "The only person crazier than you for doing DMI and teaching full-time is Joe Quackenbush for chairing the graphic design department and DMI. Thank you, Joe, for your mentorship, leadership, guidance, and trust. You took a huge risk on me. I know it, you know it, and I know you know it." Thank you. Jan Kubasevich, a longtime mentor and the founder of DMI, your thoughtfulness, optimism, and intellectualism are infectious and inspiring. I believe Merrimack College hired me in part for my anti-disciplinary stance. What an honor and responsibility it is to carry forward that lineage, which was so thoughtfully crafted and refined by you, your students, and your colleagues over 15 years. Thank you. Lisa Rosowski. Where are you, Lisa? Oh. My book design and writing advisor. I am so very grateful for all your insights, editing, feedback, and support. And just a note to those who may be seeking a writing advisor. There were times I uploaded a draft, and within 2 hours, I'd have a revised document back with over 200 suggested edits. Now let's do the math. That's more than 1 edit per minute. You're amazing, Lisa. Thank you. And here's my final abstract, which I will read. Through a series of speculative projects and 7 case studies, my thesis explores and evaluates new tools, systems, and heuristics for teaching and learning in the arts and beyond. Through these learning experience design-based investigations, I speculatively reimagine and recontextualize the relationship between learners, educators, and peers within a range of learning environments. Drawing inspiration from Professor Gunnar Swanson's essay, Design and Knowledge in the University and in the Real World, all 7 case studies are guided by a set of 4 interrelated themes: communication, expression, interaction, and cognition, which according to Swanson represent 4 broad areas that graphic design could bridge. What is graphic design? Throughout this work, I re-examine graphic design and place it in the broader context of communication design, a comprehensive field that posits a wider range of media, disciplines, technologies, and applications. Much of the research and inspiration for my thesis is derived from Stephen Heller's anthology, The Education of a Graphic Designer, to which the title of this thesis alludes. By replacing graphic with communication, I am largely acknowledging a personal shift away from the strictly graphic, mainly designing visual artifacts, to a wider practice of designing experiences, interactions, and systems. While the experiences, interactions, and systems that I have designed all primarily focus on art and design education, one can easily imagine how these multimodal, interactive learning techniques could be used as a broader assisting learning tools or as catalysts for interdisciplinary communication and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to congratulate you on your new position at Merrimack and also on your upcoming baby girl. So it's great. I'm going to focus on the last three case studies: the studio made, the lecture made, and the critique made, because those seem to be the more advanced work and more self-directed. And for me, the four things you pulled from Gunnar Swanson's writing, the communication, expression, interaction, and cognition seem really important to me, particularly as you move forward as a design educator. The cognition part particularly, not in terms of our communication from us to student, understanding if students are understanding. So one of the things I really enjoyed was your studio mate. I actually wrote, need something like that for my students, but then you said it had been approved by Apple, so that's really exciting. And for me, a particular interest is the data visualization on the back end, because for me, I would want to see what the students are needing most of. I think most educators would want to know, like, where are the students getting stuck? Is it on the technology, like the hard skills, or are they seeking more help with the soft skills, like typographic layout, composition, conceptual development? So that's where I found that system to be of real value, was that part of it. I felt like Lecture Mate was really, really interesting. I wanted to know more about it. I felt like it kind of only got me halfway there. But the voice activation made me think about how students with learning challenges can cognitively sit through a lecture. I found the longer I teach, the shorter my lectures get. And now I don't lecture for more than 20 minutes.
Wow.
I find after 20 minutes they've all like kind of killed over. And even for myself, like sitting through lynda.com lectures, even a 7-minute one, I don't have the patience for it. So this is where I feel like something like that would be really valuable, and particularly being able to stop with any kind of misunderstood words or mapping those words of importance. So I'd say maybe take some time to learn, if you haven't already, look into Universal Design for Learning. Maybe do a workshop or just get a book, but that's going to help kind of move that in another direction. And then with Critique Mate, again, I thought this was really interesting. Have you seen VoiceThread? Have you ever played with VoiceThread?
No, I haven't.
VoiceThread is a tool that we use quite frequently, where you can actually post students' work. It's there's different ways of using it, but basically it's a visual critiquing tool online. So you can put a student's work in it, and then it can do vocal recording of you critiquing the work, and also this tool so you can be circling things and talking about them. So it's just like doing a critique, only you're doing it digitally. So, and it's very intuitive because it's direct voice to work, but you can also, if you're concerned about getting it right on the first try, you can re-record, but you can also do like little bubbles, like speech bubbles too on the work as well, if you're better at crafting things through text. But anyway, we found that to be a great tool. So I'd look at that if you want to further develop Critique Mate, because that's a really good model that exists right now. And then, that's, I'd say, go for it. Have fun teaching. It's,
Thank you.
There's so much learning to come.
That's great feedback. And as you can kind of imagine, a lot of the concepts for these 3 apps came from DIY solutions that the students are already doing. So they're already recording the feedback on their phones, and much of this is just kind of organizing it, making it more intuitive, more understandable. So I think like the tool that you're mentioning, I think these could be really valuable.
Yeah, particularly if you ever move into the online realm, you have to constantly keep finding new tools to do this. Although I had a student last semester do something really interesting. He was on the autism spectrum. He was trying to, he wanted to see how I was doing something with the technology. And he said, okay, wait, go. And he pulled out his phone and he recorded me walking through the tutorial.
Wow.
So he had already built in these workarounds into his workflow that I would have never thought, like, hey, pull out your phone and record me doing this. So the students are remarkably adaptable, but having these types of tools that can also inform the educators, that feedback loop to us, so we can see the breakdowns, then we can adjust our curriculum to them, so they don't have to do so much adjusting to us. So.
Can I add to that, Heather? One thing that my students taught me this semester was that in QuickTime you can do screen recordings, which you do voice capture. And I had 2 students with learning disabilities in my class, and one of them piped up and said this was really helpful. So whenever I do a demo in class, they just automatically do a screen capture and then upload it on the wiki. So they do know how to advocate for themselves, and the technology, thank goodness, is really helping with that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I usually think of those as prototypes.
Yeah.
When someone says, hey, this is the way I do it, say, oh, it's already started.
Dan, I've loved working with you these last few years. I can't believe it's over. I'm thinking about it. And I've learned so much from you. And part of the thing I've learned is to walk into every situation with an open mind and an open heart. I feel like that with you every single time we have a conversation. I'll say something, you're like, oh wow, that's a good idea. I'll think about that. And I love that attitude. I mean that sincerely. I just love that attitude. You're constantly surprised, constantly finding joy in learning all these new things. And I had the great pleasure of working with you in Design Studio One, and I totally respect the direction you took with your systems in the last year. But I just want to put a word in for that work you were doing in that class, because Isabella and Meta Pieces were every bit the sort of learning experience. In many ways, more so. Because the lecture and the studio mates are more like tools to help me sort of study, and I might get there, I might not.
Yeah.
I think I would, but those projects that you did were really sophisticated and incredibly engaging learning experiences. To have Isabella pop up while you're looking at something and chastise you, it's so wonderful, right? And the meta pieces, I would love to see you revisit that project, because there was so much rich learning experience built into your system there, by giving people the opportunity to create their own thing, and start to really think about what a painting means, what color means, what form means. And this is obviously driven by your passion for form making and image making. But I would urge you to maybe not only as you're developing apps and sorts of resources like that and tools for your students in the future, but have them thinking about those other types of learning experiences. Because you're just as fluent in that language, I would argue, as you are in the interface language, right? So
well, I think it's good feedback. In the reference I showed with the play, with the robots, I think there's something so appealing when, it's an educational experience. It's a learning experience more than an educational experience, if you know what I mean.
I think that's a really interesting distinction you just made. Really interesting, yeah.
Let's not forget about the hexachords.
Oh.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
I loved where that went, and then it's very meditative, and I could listen to that for probably 3 hours.
I'm glad that Lou said that, because I would have just a word. Having a great pleasure to work with you all those years, and I would like to give you an unsolicited advice for the road. You are going to the environment where you'll be teaching communication design, but not for those who want to be communication designers.
Right.
Remember about anti-disciplinarism. You are walking into the situation of being one of many different dots to connect. Take advantage of the situation for your growth and your growth of your students.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But you're versatile enough to do it. So it's the way that you've kind of dealt with building probably among the most professional looking processing applications ever developed here, except possibly things that Schuermann has done. And then this book and sort of everything in between is pretty amazing.
Thank you, Fred.
Can't wait to implement it.
Oh yeah, and thank you to Luann, who actually gave me a lot of good advice for Studio Mate. And for those that don't know, Luann's the studio manager on the 9th floor.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
No baby yet. We can make some pictures.
Thank you.
I had to take a beer last to go.
Except you almost did.
That's been a rigorous 2 years.
Now you got me hot.
Oh, do you remember saying that?
I said
Oh, that's classic.
so.
That's true. But it's true. That's what makes it. You mean so much. Really good. Yeah.
You have more than satisfied the requirements for the MFA degree from the Dynamic Media Institute at MassArt, and we're so happy for you, Dan, but we are going to miss you. We're so grateful that so many of you came out today. Thank you so much. The advisors have some book signings to do now, and then we're all going to head to the Pig for drinks, and I hope you will join us there. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the fall. We've got an amazing class coming in the fall, I'm happy to say. We've got 2 postbac students, 6 MFA candidates, a great staff joining us again, and I want you all to know, every single one of you are always welcome at DMI. It's an amazing community that our founder, Jan Kubashevitz, designed for us. Designed, or it certainly feels like it's been designed, and I hope that we're doing all we can to keep that tradition going. And our newly minted alumni, you are always welcome back here. And it's delightful to see so many of you coming back from years past. So thanks so much. We'll see you at the Pig, right?